It was past midnight on a cold October evening when Jake Turner drove his old Ford pickup down Highway 61, a lonely stretch of road that cut through endless miles of forest. The radio buzzed with static, though stations came in this far out. He'd been driving for 6 hours straight from Duluth, trying to make it to St. Paul before dawn. The moon hung low, pale and swollen, lighting up the mist that crept across the asphalt. Jake's eyes burned from exhaustion, but when he saw the faint figure by the roadside, a girl in a pale dress with her thumb out, he instinctively slowed down. Something about her posture, the way she stood so still in the cold, made him uneasy. Still, he pulled over. Out here, people helped each other. Or at least, they used to. The girl looked about 19, maybe 20. Her hair was long, dark, and tangled, and she wore a thin white dress that didn't belong in this kind of weather. She didn't look up as she opened the passenger door and climbed in. "Where are you headed?" Jake asked, forcing a polite tone. "Home," she murmured, voice soft and distant. "Just home." He nodded, waiting for her to say more, but she didn't. The silence between them grew heavy. After a few miles, Jake noticed her hands were trembling. He turned the heater up. "Cold night," he said, glancing at her. She didn't respond. Instead, she stared straight ahead, eyes glassy, as if she were watching something far beyond the windshield. Jake tried again. "So, where's home?" She turned slowly, meeting his eyes for the first time. Her lips barely moved as she whispered, "Riverview Drive." Jake frowned. He knew Riverview. It was a few towns over, but he hadn't seen any houses there for years. Most had been abandoned after the river flooded in '98. "You sure?" he asked, keeping his tone light. She nodded once. Her expression didn't change. They drove in silence for another 20 minutes. The mist thickened, swallowing the road. The forest loomed closer, branches scraping the sides of the truck. Then, from the corner of his eye, Jake thought he saw her lips curve into a faint smile. But when he looked again, her face was blank. The sign for Riverview appeared at last, half buried in weeds. Jake slowed down, headlights cutting through fog. The air felt colder now, damp and heavy. "This it?" he asked. She didn't answer. She was staring at a small dirt path veering off the main road. "There," she said softly. Jake hesitated. That trail led to the old river bend. He remembered hearing stories. Teenagers who drowned, houses that slid into the water when the banks gave way. "You live down there?" he asked. She finally turned toward him again, her eyes reflecting the dashboard light like glass. "Not anymore," she whispered. The words chilled him. "What do you mean, not anymore?" But before he could finish, she opened the door. Jake hit the brakes and leaned over. "Wait, it's dangerous down there." But she was already stepping into the mist. He scrambled out of the truck, the cold air biting through his jacket. "Hey!" he shouted, flashlight in hand. She didn't look back. Her figure drifted toward the river. White dress glowing faintly through the fog. Jake followed, boots sinking in wet soil. The only sounds were the river's distant rush and his own breathing. Then, splash. She disappeared near the water's edge. Heart racing, he ran closer. "Miss, are you okay?" But the bank was empty. Only ripples moved across the surface. No footprints, no sign of her. Just the dark water, reflecting his shaking beam of light. Jake's throat tightened. He stood there for a long moment, trying to make sense of what he'd seen. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something pale, half buried in the mud. A photo. He picked it up. An old, water-damaged picture of a young girl standing beside a mailbox. Scribbled on the back, Riverview Drive, 1998. The same face, the same dress. His heart stopped. He stumbled back toward the truck, mud clinging to his boots. When he finally reached the road, his headlights flickered, then died completely. The engine refused to start. He sat there, trembling in the silence. Somewhere behind him, faintly through the mist, came a sound, soft footsteps approaching on gravel. Jake froze. The footsteps stopped right behind his door. Slowly, he turned his head toward the window. The glass was fogged, but he could just make out a faint handprint forming on the outside. Slim fingers pressing against the glass, leaving a wet outline. "No," he whispered. He slammed the lock, heart hammering. Then, just as suddenly, the handprint vanished. The fog cleared. The road was empty. Jake started the engine again. This time, it roared to life. He didn't question it. He sped off, tires spraying mud. He didn't stop until he reached a gas station 20 miles away. The attendant blinked when he saw Jake's pale face. "Buddy, you look like you've seen a ghost," he said with a half smile. Jake didn't answer. He just muttered something about a lost hitchhiker and asked for directions to the nearest motel. The attendant frowned. "You mean that girl on Riverview Drive?" Jake's head snapped up. "You've seen her?" The man nodded slowly. "Not lately. She died out there years ago. Car crash on that flooded road. Folks still claim to see her sometimes, asking for a ride home." Jake felt the blood drain from his face. He glanced back at his truck through the window and froze. On the passenger seat, soaked and muddy, lay the photograph he'd dropped by the river. Same faded girl, same dress. Below it, scrawled in fresh mud, were two words: "Thank you."